Salt imported over thousands of miles, meat smoked for days, ice harvested in winter just to last until July. All in an age without refrigeration or pasteurization. We assume medieval kitchens were death traps, yet mass food poisoning was surprisingly rare. What invisible barriers kept disaster at bay? And how close did the system come to collapse when nature turned against it? The answers upend everything we think we know about food safety and survival before the modern era. A slab of pork, freshly cut, disappears beneath a thick crust of salt. Within hours, beads of moisture collect on the surface, drawn out by the salt's relentless pull. This isn't just seasoning, it's a calculated assault on the invisible world of microbes. Bacteria, like all living things, need water. At salt concentrations of 20 to 30% by weight, the rules change. Water rushes out of microbial cells, leaving them shriveled and powerless to multiply. In this briny environment, the water activity drops below 0.85, a threshold where most pathogens simply cannot survive. The process isn't quick. Meat might rest in salt for days, even weeks, with each layer packed tight and repacked as liquid seeps away. Fish, the backbone of winter diets and Lenten fasts, travel hundreds of miles from the North Sea or the Mediterranean, packed in barrels and blanketed with crystalline salt. The salt itself is a treasure, so valuable that entire economies rise and fall on its trade. Venetian merchants, for example, ferry salt from the Adriatic to markets across Europe, their fortunes built on this granular lifeline. Salt is never cheap. For a manor to cure enough pork to last the year, the cost in salt alone could rival the price of the meat itself. Estates ration their supply, preserving only the choicest cuts. The rest is consumed fresh, or finds its way to the smokehouse for a second layer of protection. The limits of salt, its expense, its reach, shape diets, drive trade, and set the boundaries for what can be safely stored. Even in the hands of kings, salt is never wasted. Its power lies in the simple fact that, without water, nothing grows, not even the tiniest germ. Pale strips of pork hang in a haze of blue-gray smoke, their surfaces slowly darkening as hours pass. This is not just about flavor or color. Cold smoke, drifting at around 25 degrees Celsius, lays down a chemical shield, one built from the phenols and acids released by burning wood. Oak, apple, and cherry are the favored choices, each bringing its own blend of aromatic compounds. Medieval cooks learned by practice what modern science now explains. The phenols in wood smoke do not just scent the meat, they attack bacteria directly. Even stubborn microbes like Staphylococcus aureus struggle to survive when phenol concentrations reach just 0.05%. The smoke wraps the meat in a thin, bitter-tasting film, a surface barrier that slows the advance of mold and spoilage. Not all woods are equal. Oak's dense smoke delivers a strong medicinal edge, while apple and cherry give a gentler touch. Their phenol profiles milder but still effective. Regional traditions grew from what was available: beech in Germany, alder in Scandinavia, fruitwoods in the south, each chosen as much for chemistry as for convenience. The process is slow, stretching over several days, with the temperature kept low to avoid cooking the meat. This cold smoking does not dry the meat completely, but it buys time. Combined with salt, it creates a double layer of protection, moisture pulled out from within, phenolic armor on the outside. Still, the heart of the meat remains vulnerable. Smoke can only reach so far. The next challenge, how to keep the inner flesh safe once the smokehouse cools, will demand another layer of ingenuity. In the dead of winter, teams of laborers trudge across frozen ponds, hacking thick slabs of ice from the surface. Each block, heavy as a small child, is hauled by sled to a waiting pit dug deep into the earth. Here, the real magic begins. Layer upon layer of ice is packed with straw, the whole mass buried beneath earth and thatch. By January's end, a manor's icehouse might hold enough frozen water to last until midsummer. It isn't a luxury for everyone. These underground chambers belong to the few who can afford their construction and the labor to fill them. But for those households, the payoff is measured in months, not days. Even in July, when the air shimmers with heat, the heart of the ice pile holds steady at 8 degrees Celsius, cool enough to keep milk from turning and meat from souring. Cellars and caves offer a more democratic version of this trick. Dug into hillsides or carved from stone, they stay stubbornly cool, their temperatures rarely climbing above 10 degrees, even as the world outside bakes. The science is simple. Lower temperatures slow the metabolism of bacteria. At 8 degrees, most common spoilage microbes grow at a crawl, if at all. Food stored in these chilly refuges lasts far longer than anything left in the open air. The effect is dramatic. Fresh meat or milk that would spoil in a day or two at room temperature can survive a week or more in the cold. Yet, this kind of cold storage is never just about physics. Ice harvesters, sometimes called ice masters, hold a quiet power. Their skill in timing the harvest, layering straw, and sealing the pits determines whether the larder stays full through summer. For the elite, a well-stocked ice house is a mark of status and security. For everyone else, the cool of a cellar is a small but vital line of defense, one that depends as much on geography as ingenuity. The result is a world where temperature is both a barrier and a privilege, and where the chill of winter lingers quietly beneath the ground. On a summer afternoon, wooden racks stretch across the edge of a village green, each one loaded with thin slices of beef, strings of fish, or rows of halved apples. The air is dry, the sun relentless, and the wind carries the faint scent of grass and hay. This is not just a country scene, it is a factory floor. Every household, from peasant to lord, relies on the same principle: take away water, and food stops rotting. Microbes, no matter how tenacious, cannot multiply when the water activity drops below 0.6. Below that threshold, even the hardiest bacteria shrivel and die. Drying is as old as hunger itself, and as universal as the wind. In northern Europe, where sunlight can be fickle, stone-drying towers rise above the fields. Inside, fires smolder at the base, sending warm, dry air up through racks stacked with hundreds of kilograms of meat or fish. A single tower can process half a ton of food each week, transforming it from perishable flesh to leathery, shelf-stable stores. In southern climates, the sun alone does the work, bleaching figs, grapes, and plums until they are tough and sweet. The physics is simple. Water evaporates, leaving behind a food that is lighter, denser, and most importantly, safe for months. Dried beans, peas, and grains fill sacks in the loft, while dried apples and pears add sweetness to winter meals. The process is so effective that, in many years, up to 80% of the harvest is preserved for the lean months ahead. Yet the method is not foolproof. A sudden rainstorm, a stretch of damp weather, and the whole season's work can be undone by mold. For now, though, as the last rays of sun slip behind the hills, the racks stand silent, a quiet bulwark against hunger, built from nothing but air, fire, and time. Barrels line the walls of a bustling alehouse, each one quietly bubbling with invisible activity. Inside, lactic acid bacteria feast on sugars, transforming cabbage, grains, and even milk into tangy, sour staples. This is fermentation at work, a process as old as bread itself, but guided by hands that know its secrets. Lactic acid fermentation lowers the pH of food below 4.0, a level where dangerous microbes like Salmonella and Listeria simply cannot thrive. The science is hidden, but the results are unmistakable: sour ale, sharp cheese, and pickled vegetables that last through the darkest months. In Chester, the reputation of an alewife named Agnes Bostock rests on her mastery of this living chemistry. Borough records from the 15th century show how guild inspectors visited her tavern, dipping wooden spoons into fresh batches of ale. One taste could mean a fine for sourness, or a commendation for a brew that held its edge. Agnes isn't just following tradition, she is enforcing an unwritten code. Too slow a ferment, and the ale turns unsafe. Too quick, and it loses its character. The guild's oversight isn't just about flavor, it's a matter of public health, long before the word existed. Modern analysis of barrel residues from sites like Novgorod reveals DNA from lactobacillus, the same bacteria that modern kitchens rely on for yogurt and sauerkraut. These microbes don't just preserve, they enhance. Fermented foods retain more vitamins, especially C and B, than their raw or cooked counterparts. For a medieval diet short on fresh produce, a crock of soured cabbage could mean the difference between health and scurvy. By keeping pH low and competition fierce, fermentation builds a bacterial bodyguard, protecting food and people alike. In the world of medieval preservation, the real magic isn't just salt or smoke, it's the careful cultivation of life itself. Imagine a castle kitchen where a single cauldron can decide who lives. In the kitchens of King Richard II, a fire blazes beneath a row of iron cauldrons. Here, the final defense against invisible threats is not salt or smoke, but heat. Royal ordinances from 1387 spell out the rules with precision. No meat is to be served more than 48 hours after slaughter, and every joint destined for the king's table must be boiled or roasted until steaming. The timing is strict. Freshly butchered animals are cooked within a day, and anything left after 2 is discarded or boiled again for servants' broth. These rules are not about flavor or ceremony, they are about survival. Modern science explains what medieval cooks enforced by instinct. Most foodborne pathogens, Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, die when exposed to temperatures above 65 degrees Celsius. Laboratory studies show that a rolling boil, held for even a few minutes, can reduce Salmonella counts by over 99%. In a world without thermometers, the bubbling cauldron became the standard of safety. Dishes like pottages, stews, and broths dominated the menu, not just for their heartiness, but because their preparation guaranteed every mouthful had passed through the kill zone. The discipline extended beyond the palace. Town ordinances echoed the same logic, requiring butchers and cooks to sell or serve meat within a day or 2 of slaughter. Delay meant danger. In the absence of refrigeration, the clock started ticking the moment an animal was killed. Fast service was not a luxury, it was a necessity. The rhythm of medieval kitchens, from manor to market, followed the relentless pace of spoilage, with heat and haste working together to keep illness at bay. In this system, timing was as important as technique, and the memory of a spoiled feast could haunt a cook far longer than any praise for a well-seasoned dish. A medieval year unfolds not in weeks or hours, but in a cycle of labor mapped to the changing seasons. Illuminated manuscripts from the 13th and 14th centuries show this rhythm in vivid detail, each month marked by a distinct task, each task timed to the shifting climate. November brings slaughter as the first hard frosts sweep across the fields. Pigs and cattle are killed in a narrow window after harvest, when the cold air slows decay and flies vanish from the scene. The timing isn't arbitrary. Meat must be processed before the winter's deep freeze, but after the last sheaf of grain is stacked away. Manorial accounts from England and France reveal the scale of these operations. On a single estate, as many as 50 animals might be slaughtered in 1 week. To keep pace, payrolls double as crews work through the night, layering cuts of pork and beef with holt, packing barrels to the brim. Every hand is needed, and every hour counts. Preservation is not a matter of improvisation. The calendar dictates the order. Roots and apples are dug and stored in September, grains threshed and dried by October, and meat salted in November. The coldest months, December and January, are reserved for the salting frenzy when the air is dry and the risk of spoilage lowest. By February, attention turns to the last of the livestock, with final slaughters and the first hints of Lent's approach shifting the focus to fish. Each task is coordinated to exploit the narrow margins allowed by weather and faith. The annual cycle is a blueprint for survival, balancing labor, climate, and religious observance to keep food safe until the next harvest. When the schedule is followed, larders stay full and illness is kept at bay. But any disruption, a warm winter, a late frost, a labor shortage, threatens the entire system, and with it, the promise of another year. In the summer of 1315, rain fell for weeks on end. Fields flooded, hay rotted in the meadows, and the grain harvest withered before it could be brought in. Preservation routines, so carefully mapped to the calendar, buckled under the weight of the weather. Barrels of salted fish, meant to last through Lent and beyond, turned soft and sour as brine diluted and casks swelled. Even the most skilled salters and smokehouse masters found their work undone by the damp. Prices responded with a vengeance. In London, the cost of salt tripled within a year, pushing it beyond the reach of all but the wealthiest households. Henry Knighton, a chronicler from Leicester, described the chaos in his account. Stores of meat and fish spoiled in the barrel, and what little survived fetched outrageous sums in the market. As preservation failed, so did the safety net it provided. Grain sprouted in storage, peas and beans molded in their pits, and root cellars flooded. With each passing week, more families turned to whatever scraps remained, often food already on the edge of decay. Dysentery swept through villages and towns. Coroner's rolls from the period show a sharp rise in deaths attributed to the flux, a catch-all for diarrheal diseases that thrived in the wake of spoiled food and contaminated water. In some parishes, burial rates doubled or even tripled compared to a normal year. The famine exposed the limits of even the most layered preservation system. When the weather turned against them and salt became a luxury, no amount of careful planning could hold back hunger or disease. The medieval world, so adept at managing risk in ordinary years, found itself overwhelmed by forces it could neither predict nor control. The collapse was not just about empty larders, but about the breakdown of every safeguard that had kept illness at bay. Modern kitchens rely on machines and chemicals, yet global food waste now tops 1 billion tons per year. Medieval solutions, rooted in observation, adaptation, and respect for limits, preserved more than just food. As we face rising energy costs and fragile supply chains, their ingenuity offers a reminder. Resilience is not just found in technology, it is found in understanding nature itself. What lessons might we reclaim before convenience costs us more than we expect?